Do you need to watch all the other movies to understand what's going on? I'd give this movie, out of all the Marvels, first impressions of the movie. See, Disney had a lot of redemption to cover, a lot of ground to cover because there was a lot of bullshit that they released within the MCU. And I'm not the only one that thinks that. All right, I stopped watching. I have a subscription to Disney Plus, and I haven't watched half of the Marvel content released. And this movie redeemed all of that. It being Disney's first rated R movie, it was amazing. Okay, I really enjoyed it. And I'm going to give you, without getting into spoilers, I'm going to give you a few reasons why this movie is worth seeing. If I had a kid, I don't care. My kid's 5. My kid's seeing this movie. That's just me. I would not recommend that for other kids. My kids, I would raise a lot differently. Okay, my dad brought me up. First, I was in kindergarten. He had me watch Hellraiser. So that's what kind of shit I've been around. One thing I'd like to point out is the back and forth banter between Deadpool and Wolverine. We're talking about Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman at this point. And I'm telling you, it was amazing. These guys were like brothers. That's what the movie seemed like. Brothers, long lost brothers. Okay, and this is without me seeing the other Wolverine movie. The banter back and forth was hilarious. And for a while, you kind of get so lost in between the banter and the humor of everything that you don't remember that you're actually watching a brand new movie because it seems like a regular thing between these two. I really enjoyed that. The comical relief of everything throughout the whole movie, which almost all of it was comical relief. It made you feel good about indulging in such a violent, brutal movie. How did the movie balance humor and action? It balanced it very, very, very well. I might get into this a bit later in the video, but the pause scenes that Deadpool is famous for, where he would say a joke before some brutal shit happened, it was amazing, especially with the opening scene. And I'm not even going to say what that scene was all about, but the music in that scene and the dance moves. Now, I don't know if that was Ryan Reynolds dancing, okay? But if it was, holy shit, maybe you should be a professional dancer. I'd give you dollar bills. Those moves were sick. They were insane. The humor is great. It's top notch, especially coming from Disney and it being a rated R film. It was top notch. Okay, I've watched rated R films where they try extremely hard to be funny, and it's just horrible. And then you have funny films trying to be dramatically horrifying, and it just doesn't work out. It comes off corny. This movie didn't do that, surprisingly. Okay, a lot of people might say Deadpool is very corny for the things that he says and his jokes, but I never found it that way. From movie 1 and 2, they were just extremely on point and funny and also horrifying. Not to a point where you're scared, because this is not a horror flick, but it is extremely gruesome. I'll tell you that much. I haven't seen all of the Wolverine movies, but I have seen all of the Deadpool movies. And you could definitely fit this movie into that category. Some people will probably say that the first 2 Deadpool movies are way better than this one. I'm not that guy. Story-wise, yes. But as an overall movie, I really find this movie to be well-rounded and creates an atmosphere for your fan, your average fan. I'm not a diehard fan. I'm not a fanatic. I would love to be. I just don't have enough time to get too down into details like that. But for me, this movie did its job, and it did its job as place of the 3rd movie and probably as the next Wolverine movie all together in one. I'm going to try to do that this weekend and watch the other Wolverine movies and X-Men movies to kind of get caught up, to put myself in position to make another judgment, because I do plan on seeing this movie multiple times. For me, it was that good. It was fantastic. It was great. It was amazing. Do you need to watch all the other movies to understand what's going on? Not really. They kind of give you some of the best flashbacks to bring you up to speed on things. And I think that's awesome. They did a pretty good job at that. I got the gist of it, but it did make me curious to say, hey, I should probably watch the other movies, which I'm going to do. So the highlights of the film: comedy and gore. Okay, and the gore is definitely have to do with cinematic effects. The cinematic effects were really good. Now, when it comes to the visual effects, if we're talking about kills, they do an amazing job at this. this. They do a very, very well job at this. I am going to tell you now, there is a ton of blood, okay? Let's just say if Dracula and Hannibal Lecter were on set of this film, they would have a hard time containing themselves and not eating everyone's face. That's how much blood was in this film. Some people might say it was overdone, but I think it was just perfect. Okay, like it was awesome. It was awesome, especially being a Disney movie. A Disney movie. They have had so much backlash of holding back and doing, what is it called, DEI or something like that. There's like a slang term that they have that the people are mad at woke stuff. This movie was not woke. I could tell you right now, it was not woke even remotely. Okay, so let's talk about the plot. The plot of the movie, without getting into spoilers, you're trying to put one universe into another. The plot of good guys versus bad guys, to me, it seemed jumbled and a little off. It definitely seemed a little rushed. They focused way more on the cinematic and brutal effects and the jokes and the writing of it, of the jokes, because they were great. And also all the other characters that they implemented into it, which also makes this movie great. The story between the good guys and the bad guys fell off, in my opinion. I wasn't pissed off enough at the villain. I didn't care for the villain. I wasn't pissed. They didn't do enough to piss me off because they were not that relevant and prominent throughout the story. It's not like a Thanos where it builds up to it. It wasn't that at all. It kind of drags off. You know, like you're dealing with a powerful being and they could snap their fingers and destroy everybody if they really wanted to. They just don't do that. It kind of drags on a bit. And that's not ruining the movie because the end and everything that goes up to it is a big surprise, and it's very intense. It's very intense. You don't know who wins, you don't know who loses, but they're dealing with a very powerful being. I think the entertainment of that being while they were in the movie alongside Wolverine and Deadpool, the entertainment and the banter between all of them was really good. The banter was awesome. It very much blended in, and it is definitely a Deadpool movie. And I hope that this makes Wolverine that kind of character. But from what I'm seeing, they're going to cast Wolverine as somebody else, I guess. I don't know. I don't know about that. I haven't looked too much into it. So if you're a fan of the franchise, this is a movie you're going to want to see. Now, if you're like me and have been a fan of the franchise and are upset with Disney's rollout of all their shows and movies and stuff, like, let's say, honestly, I can't even speak on that because I like some of their shows that they put out, and some of them I just watched in the background. If I see a bad review, I'm gonna let it play in the background, and I'm still gonna kind of watch it and do what I got to do. If you're a fan of the franchise, you're absolutely gonna love this movie. I'm not just talking about when it comes to Endgame and Infinity Wars and the movies that came before that. This movie stretches out even further back from when I was a little kid. And I'm like 60 years old now. Okay, so from when I was a little kid, it just brought back memories and emotions and had me going, if that makes any sense. It was, oh, man. I do recommend this movie for people that are just getting into it and people that are big fans. This was definitely one for the books. Memorable moments. Holy shit. There was a ton, okay? But for me, there was one, and it gave me hope. This moment gave me hope. They had lots and lots of cameos. I was going to say hundreds, but then that would be too specific. But they had lots of cameos. And one cameo put my heart into my asshole. And I had to clench my cheeks to make sure it did not slip out. I was that excited. I was literally praying for it, and I never made a post about it. I doubt I did. Highly doubt I did. Wow, this cameo was amazing. And there's lots of them. There's plenty of them to go around. I felt this way about that cameo. My girl felt that way about another cameo. It was amazing. We were just cheering and shouting because they just unleash all these cameos and everyone's shocked to see them. You hear the whole theater roaring and cheering on. It's been a long time since you sit in a theater watching a Marvel movie where everyone is cheering. The last time that's happened to me was Endgame. Cheering on when all those circles opened up. It's giving me goosebumps just thinking about it. This film does have some new characters in it. Some of them were not that memorable. Some of them maybe they were in other movies. I just didn't know. So Deadpool has a friend. I don't know if he was in other movies. I don't think he was, but they make him seem like a very memorable character. There is another character that is extremely memorable, and he is not of human form. And oh no, it's a she. I think I just gave it away. Right. So there is another character that is not of human form, and I think a lot of people will recognize this character from other places. They put this character in the movie, and it was awesome, especially if you love these creatures like most people should. There's a lot of brutality in this movie, and it seems like sometimes that brutality is going to last forever. It was very obvious by pictures and stuff released that Deadpool and Wolverine butt heads a lot, and they fight. They're both invincible. So you got to think these scenes could be very, very long. I'm glad to see that they didn't make them last too long, because it can become repetitive and kind of like, okay, we get it. They kind of ended it very well. They ended brutality against each other very well. Although it does last for multiple scenes, they butt heads. Of course they do. Of course they butt heads. That is not a spoiler. They're gonna butt heads. So the film, again, it keeps you engaged by these cameos. Honestly, the cameos held this film together. It really did. Because when you start losing a little interest, boom, there's a cameo. There was like at least 30. They did a good job at using these cameos to keep you engaged. This movie definitely seemed like a heroic movie, and it kind of kept that pace because they were on a mission to do something. We're not going to say what, okay? And you definitely feel the buildup, and you feel it's a little bit lengthy. You kind of forget at certain points because you're so thrown off by these cameos on what their mission is. In my opinion, I was hoping the film would go in a different direction, and I really hope that some of these cameos will have their own slot in the universe, and that would be awesome. I'd really love that. But it kept good pace on the fact that it was a heroic type of movie and they had a mission, but not the best. I can't say it was the best. Like I said, the story and plot kind of seemed like it was thrown together at the end. Now, I would love to talk about Easter eggs, but there's so many to even remember. I am definitely seeing this movie again, and there are dozens and dozens of Easter eggs. And if you love Easter eggs, you're going to want to see this movie. And you're probably going to be able to tell me the Easter eggs you saw, because I am very, very much, what's a good way of putting this? My brain does not retain information as well as most. If you saw this movie and found Easter eggs, let me know in the comments what Easter eggs you found. You could spoil it at this point because, maybe don't spoil it. Just leave it like a 2-word thing. Don't explain it. Just give me 2 words down in the comments of an Easter egg you noticed in the movie. Now, one thing I'd like to highlight is the soundtrack. They have a very unique soundtrack, as most Deadpool movies do. In the first Deadpool movie, a huge part was the soundtrack, like the one song that he really liked. I forget what it was. Wham! It was Wham! Or something like that. I don't remember, but he's just like, wham! And he's holding up the record. This movie definitely has a great soundtrack, and it brings you back nostalgic. Opening scene is in sync, all right? And there's this huge commotion, and there's just like whole action scene, and the way they work that into the movie is spot on. It's awesome. It's awesome. But their soundtrack is pretty dope. It's definitely a huge part of the movie that makes the movie what it is. Would I recommend this movie for newcomers and hardcore fans? Of course I would. Of course I would. 100%. I would mostly recommend this, and I have been since I watched it last night, to people that have lost their faith in Marvel because Disney took it over. Disney took it over and ruined it. But because this is redemption, it's a rated R movie on Disney. It's awesome. At least Disney can stop being subliminal about their dark humor. Okay, they could just flat out come and do it. I would recommend this movie to anybody that is interested in the franchise or trying to get into it. Okay, I didn't really get much into the franchise until Infinity Wars came out. That's when I started getting into the franchise. So it ain't too late for you, because it seems like this is going to be a huge deal, huge thing. A lot of good things coming out. I'd give this movie, out of all the Marvels, I'd say it's the best thing since I watched Endgame. I don't know, Loki was really good too. I would give this a solid because of the cameo that I liked. And if you watch this movie and you think you know what cameo I'm talking about, leave that in the comments below. But because of the cameo, I give it a 10. A 10 out of 10, baby. Anyways, see you next time.